Hey, it's Millie, and welcome to the Generalist World podcast. This is a show where I interview people from the Generalist World community, and we talk things like the future of work, careers, predictions, their hot takes, and really understand what their squealy careers have looked like. So if you're a generalist who feels like they're living in a specialized world, this is the podcast for you. There's nothing better than starting the podcast with a little dance. I think, every podcast with a little dance. It's becoming a tradition. And Ish, hey, welcome to the Generalist World podcast. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much, Millie. I'm super excited for the conversation about to unfold, and I love the no music dance party that we just did.
I'm also really excited for this conversation because you have a different background than anyone else that I've recorded with so far. In fact, I could probably say that about every person. This is the beauty of Generalist World. Everyone has a different background. Everyone has a different thing they're focused and excited about. But I would love to put the spotlight on you and particularly your career that's led you up to where you are. When someone asks, what do you do? How do you describe this work that you do?
Yeah, so, I've been racking my brains around this a lot, and I work more towards the spiritual field, so I usually try not to use too much woo-woo language, but honestly, in the most simple terms, this is what I do. I'm a light worker, and I essentially transform density and overwhelm into clarity. One of the ways that I do it is through Reiki energy healing and other healing modalities, where I work with generalists, HSPs, neurodivergent folks to really help them gain clarity on their career, on their love life, on whatever aspect of their life might seem out of balance. And then that is through the Cosmic Touch community that I'm now building. And then I also run a marketing agency, which is called Creative Vibes Media, where I essentially convert the lack of clarity and the lack of communication strategies for small businesses with a purpose into streamlined, good communication, good websites, so that the business thrives and the people within that business also thrive.
Okay, that's a first. Haven't had that here yet. And so, how did you get there? What has your career looked like that this is where you are at the moment?
I would say I can split my career into two parts. One was the regular, you need to work and earn money kind of path where, I did marketing right after university. Even during university, I was part of the UCLA media housing team, and I used to run events. I used to run lots of social media marketing, and that's where I kind of started picking up on these skills. And then gradually I started transforming into more specified marketing roles. I worked with the UNDP, I worked with global health strategies. And then I realized I wanted to do more product-related things, which kind of sparked my entrepreneurial side. And so I started a podcast, which was called Product Panda on the Run. And that was my first ever trial on podcasts and also building a podcast as a product. So yeah, it was practically learning, which I think works really well for me as a generalist. And what I realized while I was doing all of this work was that there was a lot of family trauma and just things that from my childhood that were always coming in my way from achieving better things in my life. And I was caught in these very subtle loops of self-sabotage. And it was so subtle, Millie, that half of the time I was just running around in the loop, and I wouldn't even realize that I was stuck right where I was already for months and months and months without making progress. And that's when I actually discovered Reiki. So this was back when I was in the US, and I was really miserable because I was I don't know what to do with my career, everything seems bleak. And I had a Reiki session with a healer who was based in India at that time. And Reiki works like the internet. I don't know how better to explain it. It's kind of connecting with someone through the internet or through Bluetooth like we are right now, and passing the energy to them from a distance healing, for a distance healing session. And after that, I don't know what happened, but things started to very subtly shift. And I started making better decisions, better choices. I felt more inside of my body. while making those decisions. And when I moved back to India from the US, I decided that I wanted to actually go on a deeper healing journey for myself. And that's when I started learning yoga, I started learning Reiki, tarot. I don't know, I have like a billion oracle decks at this point, so I'm not even going to name all of them. And that's how I kind of got to where I am right now, where I'm now a Reiki master, and I actually support other people on their journeys of healing, of living the life that they know they deserve in their minds, in their vision, but they feel stuck in the 3D, in the reality of things. And Reiki was actually what helped me kind of transition and move from India to Spain, which is where I currently live. And it also helped me find my partner. So connecting with myself on a deeper level and getting to know myself even better through this energy was what really helped me switch the way that I look at things. And yeah, one thing led to another, and now I'm building a community called the Cosmic Touch, which is a safe container for healing, for growth, for living the life that we want to live, the one that we know we deserve to live. And whether that's through like your career, your relationships, whatever it might be, I feel like my purpose right now is to really anchor that for other people, and also for myself while supporting other people. And yeah, that's how I got to where I am right now.
That's really beautiful. I've been thinking a lot recently about this idea of like a diverging path, and I've actually written about it recently as well, because when I look back at my life, there's all of the like most significant events are where I diverged from the traditional path. Like I was like, instead of graduating and actually getting a job as a teacher, I got a one-way flight to Berlin. That was a massive diverge. And I wonder if you can take me back to that time when it sounds like you were on quite a traditional path. You were in the US, you were working these like traditional jobs. And do you remember that feeling of when you diverged? And are there any kind of standout lessons when you were in that space?
So my story of divergence is very connected to my family and the tradition within which I was born. So I was born in India, I was raised here as well, and the culture within which I specifically was raised in was very like, okay, you need to do like plan A to plan B to plan C. You study, then you go to university, you get a job, a 9 to 5, and then you earn money, and then you get married, and blah blah blah. So from a very young age, I was really frustrated by that. Like every time someone told me, get a business degree and then you'll figure it out, or like do this, like become a doctor and then everything will be fine. And I was like, this doesn't resonate with me, because the systems within which these professions exist, or at least the systems within which I want to create the change, they really frustrated me, because they do not accommodate for different learning styles, different ways of being, and they're very rigid, is what I always felt. Like you have to fit into this box to excel, and that's how I felt in school and university. Even though it was in the US, like it was that constant, chatter in my mind, which was like, you need to get a 9 to 5, you need to join like McKinsey and Company, or one of these kind of organizations, and make your way up. And there was a point which came when I moved back to India from the US after working there for a bit as well, where I was like, this is not good for my health, and constantly trying to please others through the image that they have of me is not working for me. It's not good for my health, and it's not good for my energy, really. So that's when I started going for yoga retreats and going to like the mountains more, and like exploring forests and rivers. And there came a very pivotal point where, it was like time for me to do my master's, like go for your higher education, like the typical education system steps. And I decided that I was interested, I was intrigued, but it just never seemed aligned for me. And that's when I decided I'm going to go freelance full time, back when I was just doing the marketing gigs. And yeah, I've been learning on the job ever since. I think it was 2021 when I decided this. And now, like, all of my learning has been very practical and through like community-based organizations, very much like the generalist world. There was a very subtle switch which happened for me where I was like, I don't want to people please anymore. I don't want to fit into some image that someone has about me or I want someone to have about me. And that's where I started pivoting, and that's when I started embracing my gifts of like healing through energy and reading tarot and doing these things, which also are a beautiful way to transform energy and make a positive shift in people's lives. So I think my biggest like learning has been to follow your own heart, like lead from the heart, not the mind. Because the mind very often is filled with other people's words and other people's thoughts, because of course we are social creatures. But when we follow the heart, I don't know, it's like almost like, those movies where like magically the path starts appearing, the next step, like the staircase just appears, like of course it is work, you have to work towards it as well, but the staircase will appear,
Ooh, I love. If someone is listening to this and it's resonating and they're like, okay, I think I'm in this stage where I can sense that I'm not aligned, but this is quite an abstract thing, right? It's not something you can be like, you can't check it on your like health app and be like, yep, no, not aligned. So this is like a felt thing. So if someone's listening and they're saying, yeah, actually, I don't feel like I'm aligned in my work, in my goals, and where I'm heading, what is like the step they can take today to start shifting that?
My answer to these kind of questions is always journal, do some kind of creative activity where you use the left side of your brain, where you get more connected to the creative side of your being, really. Or spend some time in nature, anything that you need that works for you, and just like take some kind of a journal and just write down like what's going on for me, where in my body am I feeling this clenching or pain or anything like that, and then go from there. Like keep asking your body, hey body, like what feels incorrect right now, and it might give you like a really weird answer or something that you don't want to change at all, something that's totally counterintuitive. For me, that was when like my body was like, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. And I was like, are you crazy? What are you saying? Like, this is how I've been raised, like, what are you saying? I have to make money on my own and not receive it as a salary, So it could be something which is totally outside of your comfort zone, and that's a good sign. It means that your energy system knows what's good for you. And the more you follow that little voice inside, instead of like shoving it down, like if you start listening to it and allowing it to like help you go, it's almost like a positive ripple that gets created.
Amazing. There is such a big trend at the moment toward self-employment and entrepreneurship, and I think it kind of stems from this like mass instability and layoffs everywhere. And I'm curious to dig more into that journey for you, because you've successfully transitioned from someone who was at a 9 to 5 to being like, you actually have this, I guess, like kind of portfolio of different projects that you're working on. If you could go back and give Ish some advice when you were just like going into that entrepreneurship journey, what might that be?
I would say don't focus on the how, focus on the what. So something even, as healers that we experience is, while like healing or ourselves or someone else, we always look at the bigger picture of what we want, but we don't like go into the how will it happen, what is the, what are the steps, how will these people listen to me, or how will I convince someone to make me, the head of this project or something, none of that. It's more like, okay, this is what my vision is, this is what my highest calling is, this is where like I light up. So the how isn't as important. It's just about, okay, you know what, it's gonna happen. Yeah, it's like a a really deep sense of faith and belief that you're able to do anything that you want to do. And especially as freelancers, like we have to, or even entrepreneurs, we have to like really dedicate time and energy to our own projects. And it's not easy. It is really not easy because there are so many more fun things we could be doing. Like I would much rather be, in a forest like all the time. But there comes like this like little sense of responsibility, especially if you're working on something that lights you up, and I've seen that in you, Millie. Like I've really seen that in you. Honestly, I think it's so inspiring. And when you're working towards something that lights you up, like it's difficult to ignore that work, like I'm on vacation right now, and yet here we are on a podcast. And then I have like someone just booked a Reiki session, so I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm happy to do it, like I don't feel stressed or burned out about it.
I read this quote this week, and it's one of those quotes that keep resonating in my brain. It keeps coming back up, and it said, I'm going to not quote it, I think it was by Naval, in fact, and it said that when you become an entrepreneur or a founder, you no longer have weekends, you no longer have holidays, but you also no longer have work. And I was like, yes, because like it's not as simple as being like, I'm never going to work on the weekend because I work Monday to Friday. That's something we made up firstly. Like this Monday to Friday thing, it's just invented. We're like, this is plucked out of thin air. And I think it's just like, again, listening to your body. And sometimes I will work on the weekend, and then I might take, on Wednesdays, I don't come in because I'm volunteering at the local community garden. And that's fine. Like, it's just a made up, like this Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 is totally made up. And I think there is a balance though, because if you're not really honest with yourself, it's like a slippery slope into working all the time and not actually giving yourself enough rest. So I do think there is some kind of balance to be struck there.
Definitely. I mean, I love the quote that you mentioned, like that hits home, right? Because sometimes for me, like work is what soothes me, and work feels like rest, which is really, it's like a dichotomy, right? Because they're like, traditionally they're known to be two opposite ends of the spectrum. Like work means your energy is going there and like blah blah blah, but every time after a Reiki session I'm the calmest person. Like like it really makes me feel so much more embodied and so much more part of something bigger than myself, that I'm just like, you know what, give me more. Like let's do this more.
That so rings true. And in fact, Sakshi in our community asked me earlier in the week, she was like, girl, send me your time management. Like, what are you doing? How are you fitting all of these like creative endeavors in? And how are you like shipping so much? And it made me pause, because this is something I get asked often. Like people are like, are you working like 100-hour weeks? How are you doing so much? And my answer was, one, a lot of the things I'm doing, I'm sharing them. So I'm not doing more than the average person. I'm just publishing more, way, way, way more than the average person. And the second thing is I try to, and this is a fortunate position to be in that I've been able to create after many years of working on Generalist World, is that I now do the work that feels like play. And when I'm doing that work that feels like play, it almost feels like a renewable energy source. Like it just keeps coming up, because I'm like, this is so much fun. This is so like, and my husband's Irish, and he'd say it's like great crack. And it is, it's like great crack. It's so much fun and it's so playful. And to your point, it doesn't feel like work. But the caveat of all this, I don't want people being like, wow, Millie and Ish are like hard on the like the grind. It is a balance as well. And there are times when I'm like, oh, I can feel that I'm posting because of the dopamine rush, rather than posting because it's like it's the right thing to do or the creative thing to do. So I think it's like you have to be checking in, and you have to have people that hold you accountable. Like I'm so glad that my husband does not work in tech. He works in the opposite. Like it's like community, third sector, and he holds me accountable because like it's this whole other world, this like tech, digital, and I love having him who kind of keeps me grounded and also living in a place that I mean, we have the internet, but like that's about it. It's very remote and no one knows what I do. And so finding these ways, whether that's through place, through people, through practice, through your communities, to actually keep you grounded in like the real. And, I think it's really important.
Wow, that was so beautifully put. Like, so, a concept that I've been really intrigued by is the balance between the masculine and the feminine energy, and that is the balance between like receiving and giving, or, resting and taking action. Of course, our culture and environment has a big imprint on how these work, but now that I have the space and the energy to really figure this out for myself, I just kind of go drop inside of my body and ask her, like, what do you need right now? Do we need to work or do we need to, like, do something else, And that has been a game changer because sometimes, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I had to send that email. I haven't sent it yet. Or, oh yeah, that thing needs to get done. And I'm like, you know what? Laptop time is gonna come, and I'd kind of try to connect that with when I have meetings. So when I have a meeting, then it's like, okay, 1 hour more of laptop time, and then I'll finish everything off. And that way, like, I'm able to kind of batch cook things, like batch cook work.
Meal prep.
Yeah, work prep. I love that, actually. I think we should make this a thing.
Make it a thing. You heard it here first. Exactly. It's like I have this very simple way of thinking about it that I get right, I would say like 70% of the time, in all honesty. I would like it to be higher. And that is simply when I'm on, I'm all in. And then when I'm off, I'm out. I'm like, see ya. Uncontactable. Like I am out, I am off. And of course it's hard because on my phone it's like very easy to come back on, but that's my goal. Like that's my direction I'm heading. When I'm on, I'm all in, and when I'm out, like uncontactable, see you later. That's the dream.
Yeah. It's the balance between technology and reality, right? And it's something which I think a lot of people struggle with. And so, like you, Millie, I also live in a very remote little town in Spain, and we have like barely any people on the street usually, and the mountain is like literally my backyard. So, I'm very often just kind of, on hikes and treks, and I make it a point to have at least 1 hour, if not more, of nature time without my phone or anything. And that makes a really big difference because that's when I have the best ideas, not just for work, but also like, I love cooking, for instance. So like all of a sudden, like these new recipes will come up in my mind, or like, oh yeah, let's play in the kitchen.
That can also be a signal because I'm the same. I try and have a minimum of an hour outside every day without my phone. And I know that something's out of balance when I struggle to do that. Like when I'm tempted to bring my phone with me, or I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get this exciting email, or like that's when I start to know that the dopamine needs a break. And I'm like, okay, if I can't spend an hour outside in the beautiful trees looking at the sea eagles and the sea, like that's a problem, and I need to check myself.
Totally valid. Yeah, I love that. And it's important to have these kind of like, notice points about yourself, like checkpoints in your mind. So in spiritual terms, it's called the higher self, who's always looking out for you and trying to guide you in the right direction. So having that voice, pop up and be like, hey, what's going on? Why do you want to not chill? That's really, really important.
I want to get into a little bit of Generalist World because you have been with us for quite a long time and you're also one of our leads. So I'm just going to keep it really broad. What has your GW experience been like?
It's been really beautiful for me. I remember I joined just about a year ago, and at that point I was trying to figure out how to like move to Spain. I was looking for resources and trying to learn about the new culture. And Eche like connected me to some people who live there already, and as soon as I actually moved there, I had like a job opportunity, so I was able to move there. And Eche was like, you know what, hey, do you want to like host a international generalist day gathering in Barcelona? And this was like, I think week 2 or 3, and I was like, interesting. You know what, let's do it, why not, And I remember just randomly agreeing to host this thing, and that's how I actually met like some of the coolest people. And like I'd met a lot of people online before moving there, and I actually got to see them in person because I invited them to the meetup, And I was like, yeah, come, we'll hang out, it'll be fun. And yeah, like those spaces of connection where other people understand the mindset of a generalist, the challenges also of a generalist, of not being understood at the workplace or not fitting in or not being able to hold a specific kind of job. That was really beautiful for me, not just in person but also online. Like I've had so many chats with community members. I continue to connect with new people like every couple of weeks, and there's so much liveliness in the community. Like I always feel inspired every time I go on the Slack. I'm like, what will I get to know this time? What will I learn now? So yeah, especially for like learners or seekers, anyone who's into lifelong learning or just growth or curiosity, I think those are some of the values that I find in this community.
I love that, the seekers and the learners. That is definitely, because sometimes people are like, so who's inside the GW community? And I'm like, we're not the typical community where you can just be like product people. Like that, it's like a little bit of everyone. That's like, and that's the cool thing. You cannot put it in a box. But I think having this headline of like seekers and learners, beautiful. That is something I'm going to add to the website somewhere. Is there anything I haven't asked you while you've got the mic? Any like tangents or threads that you want to go down?
Actually, yes, there was one, which is about like working as a woman and following our cycles, even in our business decisions. Because I know you've posted a lot about that also. And when I started following that new pattern for myself instead of the 9 to 5, things really shifted.
What would you recommend for people who are at the beginning of this journey of either tracking their cycle or syncing with their cycle? What would you recommend?
I would recommend, firstly, just starting by understanding your body, because she has a different rhythm, she has a different way of communicating. So that's why like spending time being mindful of which part of the body feels heavy at what time of the month, maybe even tracking it through an app, or maybe some like the Lovable website that you made, which I wasn't actually able to like get on, by the way. So I'm gonna text you about that later. But first, understand yourself, become mindful of the rhythms that your body goes through, because I know men go through the same rhythm, but it's on a daily basis. They have like the testosterone, and then they have a dip, and then more testosterone and dip. But we have it on a monthly cycle. So we have the daily dips and highs, and then we also have the monthly dips and highs. So being mindful of that, and like understanding that sometimes it might just be your body communicating to you that this is not the right time, rather than taking it personally, like if something doesn't work out, Yeah. So getting into those rhythms, understanding where the womb kind of communicates, because the womb is also the space of creation. That's where creativity lives. And the more that we're in tune with that space, the more creation gets birthed through us, rather than like like in a destructive way. It's more pleasurable, it's more fun. And like for example, posting on LinkedIn, or whether it's doing your projects, like for me, when I have communications and marketing projects coming in, like I'm like, okay, like what part of my cycle am I on? All right, so now let's track how this project is gonna go, you know. So the best way to get the best quality work done is also by being mindful of the body and also being mindful of the energy that you have in that space.
It's all connected, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, we could go down, this is my jam, like we could go down a whole like many hours here, so we won't, don't worry listeners. I could add a lot. I'm gonna add two things. One is this cycle calendar that I created. It's called www.thebestcalendarintheworld.com, and the idea was, when something comes in, it might be a speaking gig, it might be an event invitation, something in the future, I'm like, well, I don't know how I'm going to be feeling then. Like, is that a good time to do it? Should I schedule it for the week after? And there was nothing I had to like basically forecast my cycle. And I am so obsessed with cycle syncing. It's life changing when you get into this. So if this is resonating and you're like, I would love to see that calendar, I just made it free on Lovable. So thebestcalendarintheworld.com. My second tip would be to find a couple of people who get it. And it doesn't need to be loads. You don't need to find 500, a community. You could if that's like helpful for you. I have a tiny, I can count them on one hand, fellow women and people who get their periods, who get it, and who I can speak so openly and so honestly, and they will do the same. And even people who maybe aren't at the same level, I still am really open about sharing, because it opens the door for other people to be like, oh yeah, I wonder, like, I'm not curious about my cycle, or I haven't, because it's been so medicalized, like, you know, different tangent anyway, Millie, don't go down there. So yeah, start to track, start to get curious, and then also just like see which friends in your circle might be curious to dig more into this. So I love that you brought this up. This has been such a fun conversation, like selfishly. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to, any other threads you wanted to pull on?
Not that I can think about, but I think the last one that I would say is, you know, you can do a lot by yourself, but if you have a container or support while you try to do the big things, the experience of it changes. It feels more fun, more light, more playful. And that's how I felt when I joined the generalist world, and that's kind of what the ethos of the Cosmic Touch community is also. So yeah, don't do it alone. Like, don't try to figure it all out yourself. Have the heart to connect with others.
I love. Well, thank you so much. So grateful you're a part of the community, and thank you for sharing all this wisdom and tips and insights today.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Millie. It was such a fun conversation.
Thank you.